Coach, your reactions on today's games?
You saw a team here tonight, I believe, that have suffered for the effects of 4 away games on the spin. We fell foul, I believe, tonight of a sharper and more prepared physically team than we were on the night. The 6 games that they had in the MLS tournament have obviously served them very well, taking nothing away from the quality that they have in the team. And again, they were very clinical when the chances came along, scored at the right time. And unfortunately, we're having a big issue doing that ourselves. In the first half, there were moments to extend our lead. And I certainly feel if we'd have been able to do that, there'd have been a lot more for the players to grab hold of and feel confident about.
All right, we will now open the floor for questions. So please, as I mentioned earlier, alert me through the chat as to whether you have a question coming up for Coach Smith. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question, Chris.
Thank you, Drake. Go ahead.
Good evening, Gary. This is something we talked about in the midweek. Talking about, yes, Orlando likes to lean on Nani a lot, but as you saw today, obviously with the rise of Daryl Dike and even Chris Mueller and also Jalmatinho, and really a collective effort by Orlando here. What did you see from the front foot, and what did you see at halftime to try and at least adjust to what they were doing going forward?
We came in with our own plan, and that plan was to, as you saw, play 2 up front. And I have to be honest, the opening exchanges I felt were ours. There were some really good moments. Abu looked very bright, and it looked as though their back line, certainly their fullbacks, were very aggressive, and we wanted to try and take advantage of that. But when you get yourself in those positions, you have to score at good times. And, yet again, we failed to score in open play, given some of the very good sights of goal that we had. So, I did feel as though our game plan came out of the blocks well. What was very noticeable, though, was when they got themselves back on level terms, given the confidence of the MLS tournament, certainly the ability of some of the guys in and around that midfield. Listen, there were some very, very good displays from the Orlando boys, and they've caused us more problems here today than any other team we've played thus far, I believe. As I said at the very start of this, we'll analyse the game. We'll look at some of the issues that we ran into, but I think we're going to find that, a lot of the guys were out on their feet, and certainly goals make a massive difference. They scored at good times. It wasn't at all helpful for our momentum or belief in the game. And in fact, their second goal, I think it might have been the third, was out of maybe one of the better periods that we'd had, where we were on top a bit, we'd hit the post, and it looked as though we might just be forcing an equaliser. They go down the far end and score, and really and truly that's pretty deflating for everyone.
We will continue with a question from Tim Sullivan with For Club and Country. Tim?
Gary, did you guys have a chance to hear at halftime that the games around the rest of the league had been canceled, and what was your reaction to that? And did you guys consider taking a similar action yourselves?
To be perfectly honest, Tim, I hadn't heard any of that. We were out, we did our half-time as per usual, and we came out of the locker room down onto the field and did our usual and got ready. That was it. I didn't know anymore. The first I've heard of teams, not taking part this evening was when I came off the field.
We will continue with a question from Paul Tenorio from The Athletic.
Gary, you kind of answered part of that question there, but obviously there were conversations going on just before you kicked off about not playing. Were you aware that those conversations were happening with and between players prior to kickoff?
You got to remember here, we're the first game of the evening, and the guys are under strict orders when we're getting ourselves ready. In fact, you know, we've tried to put some protocols in place. The guys have their phones off. They're preparing for the game. They're focused on the job in hand rather than somebody who hasn't got a ticket, somebody who's got lost in traffic or can't find their way. There's all sorts of different reasons, as we know, that, you know, people, family members and friends are going to want to get in touch. And the guys were off their phones. You know, there was no inference or you know, connection with anyone else. We just got on with our business.
We will continue with a question from Gentry Estes from the Tennessean.
Yeah, Gary, kind of my questions were mostly already asked there, but I wanted to, you know, you mentioned the team has been on the road so long and played these run of games, and you know, how much of that do you think just built up there in the second half when you were unable to kind of, you know, keep them off you there defensively?
Listen, they've created more opportunities and openings and sights of goal than I've just said than any other team we've played against. You've got to remember from the weekend, and this is a consequence of you know, not being efficient enough in front of goal. I've tried to just you know, move the pieces slightly, play with a front two, give us a little bit more impetus up front. It certainly worked for a short period, and although the goal didn't come from that change in shape, it felt as though there was more, you know, energy and belief in the group. And if I remember rightly, there were 2 or 3 excellent chances that we didn't capitalise on. Now, you know, we're in the lead, but you know, there's moments that make a difference, and they did a good job of getting themselves back in the game. And at that point now, you know, they started to take a little bit more control. I thought fatigue played a massive part in the way that, you know, some of our guys were able to affect the game. You know, the 2 midfield boys, Dax and Anibaba, I have to say, have got through some tremendous work in the last 3 away games. And the only criticism that could be levelled is at me. And that is, should I have rotated the group a little bit more? I felt as though there were enough good things going on to try and stick with that. We had a plan from the beginning of the game. And, you know, it was certainly to get one or even both of those 2 central midfield guys off, given the work they're getting through. Unfortunately, you know, trying to chase the game a little bit, I was only able to get one of them off. But, you know, look, there's loads of lessons for us to learn here. And when the guys came over at the walk break, you know, the only message I gave them was, you know, this is what builds character in teams. These are the things that bring groups closer together. These are the moments that you got to dig in when there's really not a lot of light at the end of the tunnel. And even then, you know, Dominic Badgie has a wonderful chance to get us back in the game with 10 minutes to go. And, you know, you're then putting crosses into the box and you're asking questions of a group that are under pressure. And until we get to that point where we can, you know, we can put a little bit of fear into teams that if you make mistakes, as we did, we made mistakes tonight, uncharacteristically, but they punished us. And until we get to that point, you know, we've got a lot of work to do.
We will continue with a question from Ben Wright from Speedway Soccer.
Yeah, Gary, what did you make of Daniel Rios and just his second start in MLS, and especially his pairing with Abu Dunladi?
As I've just said, I thought they were both very bright. You know, it's not easy for any of the guys up there on their own. And I just felt tonight might be a day to get the pair of them together. They got, you know, qualities that really, you know, are quite, they blend together very well. Abu's very quick and wants to get on shoulders, and Daniel's link play is you know, more about his game. And I thought they did a great job. They worked tirelessly, even when Abu was moved out wide, when, you know, I was trying to just just give us a little bit of respite. The game was getting away from us, and I wanted to get Hani back in the middle, maybe just to try and control things a little bit more with the ball, and unfortunately that wasn't to be.
We will have one more question from Jeff Ruder from the Athletic. Jeff?
Hi, Gary. You'd mentioned that players had their phones off before the game, but I mean, in the wake of the shooting of Jacob Blake and also the protests that had gone on earlier in the day in the NBA, the WNBA, and Major League Baseball, had you noticed any different energy, mood among your players as they were approaching warm-ups for this game?
I think it's only natural that, you know, anyone with a sense of possible wrongdoing, and given the climate that we're in, of course, you know, Jalil's a senior member of the Black Players Coalition, and he's not only a very intelligent and sensible lad, but of course he leads that group very well, or certainly he's a big part of it. And I think a lot of the guys understand, appreciate, and of course, listen, we're all on the same page here. Equality and, a sense of sensibility in the world is something that I think everyone's looking for.
All right, we will go on with another question from the Athletic, this time from Felipe Cárdenas. Felipe?
Yes, hello, Coach. Difficult result for you, and just following up on my colleague's question, Jeff Ruder. What's the next step, considering that there are games that are being postponed tonight, not knowing the schedule, how that will work out for you guys, and what kinds of conversations will you have with your players just in the wake of the ongoing protests and the cancellations?
Well, listen, first and foremost, we've come off the field and realised that there's nothing else going on this evening. So, this is something that the league are going to lead, I'm sure. And of course, we will support that in every which way we can. Until I'm told otherwise, we have a game on Sunday against Miami. Hopefully, any news of any changes will come through swiftly. But if not, then, we get back tomorrow. I think everyone will be pleased that, this 4-game run away from home has ended, albeit on a tough note. I certainly didn't expect to come here and get beat, and nor did the players, given the way that we've performed. But as I said in one of the other questions, there's ongoing lessons to be learned in a brand new group, and I think we can view this restart really as the start of our season. The 2 games that went before, of course, there were some things that came out of it that helped us, but we had so long without any activity that these really are the first 4 games of our season. And as we move forward, you can see in the way that sometimes I've moved players around the field, 2 centre forwards tonight. The basis of our group has come out of the back 4. But beyond that, there's players that have performed really, really well, and I'm very pleased with. And some of the most difficult things to do sometimes are to evaluate a group on the back of some of the difficulties that we've been running into, and I'm sure many other teams are as well. But for a brand new outfit, the virus and the delays and some of the difficulty in getting into a rhythm have been harmful to the group. And listen, I've no doubt we have very, very good personalities in that locker room. We'll go home, we'll lick our wounds. It stings right now. Nobody likes getting beat, especially a team that have been very, very difficult to play against. Tonight's a little bit of a smack around the chops, and we'll certainly look at some of the footage and try and improve and become a better team because of it. The key for us at the moment, if there was one, has to be taking advantage of moments in a game when we have chances, because no team in any league dominates for 90 minutes. So therefore, when you are on top, you need to take advantage of that. They did. We didn't. We've lost the game.
Thank you very much, everybody. We will continue on with by bringing some of our players. So hang in there for a few minutes. Thank you for here. Hello, everyone. Yeah. Thank you for hanging in there for us. We will begin by taking both of your reactions on today's match. Dax.
I have no thoughts about the soccer game. Obviously, coming into the locker room, seeing the news of everything that had happened after the game, soccer takes a back seat. So, quite frankly, I don't really care about what happened on the field tonight.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Obviously, our whole player pool, our league is in a moment of grieving right now. So we'll talk about that and we'll keep it on that subject.
We will now open the floor for questions. So please, as I mentioned earlier, alert us through the chat so we're able to monitor who has a question coming up. We will begin with Drake Hills from the Tennessean. Drake.
This question could be for both of you. I would like to start with Jalil. Jalil, with the timeline, considering the timeline of Atlanta and Inter Miami, obviously that didn't happen until after you guys were on the field. But in terms of what happened at halftime, were there any conversations, were there any discussions or realizations in terms of you guys not going back onto the field?
At that point in time, the game was underway. And, you know, whatever we were going to do, we knew that we had to both be on the same page. And what I mean by both being on the same page, I mean us and Orlando. So, you know, once the game starts and once things are underway, both teams have to be on the same page, and that wasn't the case. So we continued.
We have another question from Tim Sullivan for you, Jalil. Tim?
Jalil, did you get a chance to touch base either before the game or at halftime with other members of the leadership of the BPC, and what sort of conversations did you manage to have with those guys if you have had the chance to talk to them?
Well, you know, as we were approaching the timeline where we weren't supposed to be on our phones, yeah, we were trying to figure out the pulse of everybody, where everybody landed on it. And when we were literally reaching the timeline where we weren't supposed to be on your phone anymore, you know, we were still formulating a plan. So I think it's very clear where we stand on the issue as far as the league is concerned. I don't think there's any question about that, despite the fact that we played 90 minutes tonight. Like I said, like Dax said, this isn't about, it's not about football. It's not about soccer. We did what we had to do, and we did our best to you know, still show where we stand as a club, while not having enough time to be able to boycott the game, simple as.
Thank you, Jalil. We will continue with a question from Jeff Carlisle for you, Dax.
Actually, this is for both players. You know, obviously, you know, this game is over, but looking forward, what kinds of conversations have either of you had in terms of not playing in future games, you know, until, you know, some of the inequities in the country have been.
Yeah, I think you're breaking up there, but what we got from your question is what conversations will we have or have we have in terms of not playing until some of the inequities in the country are addressed. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, thanks, Jalil.
Yeah, so, I mean, at this point in time, it's just a matter of the players being unified. We will continue to discuss. We'll continue to talk about what makes the most sense. But obviously, kneeling isn't enough. Obviously, what we've been doing in terms of showing our solidarity are things that we've never seen in this league before. I don't think that we've ever had two players that have served in this league for over a decade, one black, one white, sitting next to each other speaking on these issues. I don't think that's ever happened before. So at this point in time, it's about unity, and we'll continue to show that through our conversations internally, but also our actions.
From my perspective, I like to listen. I like to learn about my teammates, about the struggles that they've gone through. I think that the Black Players for Change has tremendous leadership, and Jalil is a part of that. I defer usually to him with all of these issues, and I tell him that not only does he have my unequivocal support, but also the club. So moving forward, I'm sure the Black Players for Change is going to have plenty of meetings with MLS. I'm sure they're going to have plenty of meetings with each other. I'm sure they're going to have plenty of meetings with everyone involved in the MLS Players Association. As far as I'm concerned, all we can do is listen and learn and try to use our platform to affect change in a meaningful, positive way. As for the game tonight, Jalil said it. The timeline was just a little too crunched, and it was a little too soon for us to effectively communicate with other teams in the league about what was going to happen. Obviously, being the first game, that time frame is extremely crunched and extremely difficult to be able to have communication, meaningful communication with what's going to happen. I got to the locker room, I put my phone down, I was focused on the game, figuring out what we're going to do to try to beat Orlando. You hear rumors, you hear whispers, but ultimately that's what they are. We had no firm conversations on what was going to happen before our game or with the other games. So I'm extremely proud of the rest of the Players Association for coming and being able to have that time to make that decision together. I wish that we could have been a part of that, but ultimately that wasn't the case. So when we came back in for halftime, there's no phones. There's no one telling us, oh, there are other games being canceled, there are games being postponed, there's boycotts happening right now. We don't know any of that. So we have to focus on the job at hand, and that's exactly what we did.
We will continue with questions from Ben Wright for both of you as well.
Yeah, for both of you guys, obviously just the situation in the country now and for the past several generations is not where it needs to be, but do you feel like this is an opportunity just with the voice and the platform that you have now with the rest of the league seeming like players are on the same page? Do you feel like this is an opportunity to really use your platforms and hopefully affect change going forward?
I would say that it's past the point of an opportunity because we're here in it right now. Like I said, tonight has shown exactly where we stand. As far as what is actually going on in this country, we're doing what we can. We're doing our part. We've mobilized. We're organized. It's not just Black players that are speaking on this. Like I said, we have my brother literally next to me talking on this as well. This is not just any longer a Black issue. Yes, our people are getting killed. Yes, we're the ones that start the charge, but this is an American human issue, and we've shown that in our league. So I don't know what more we're going to have to do, but our players have shown that we're willing to do what it takes. We're willing to like I said, organize ourselves. We're willing to step out in the uncomfortable moments and kneel and obviously not play games. So at this point in time, I really don't know, but something has to change.
For me, sports has to take a back seat right now. I think that the NBA has proven that they're at the forefront of this change. I think that MLS has also proven that they're at the forefront of trying to affect positive change in communities. It's not going to happen overnight. You can't just snap your fingers and have everything magically be better. So we're at the precipice of a time in our country where you want to be on the right side of history. You want to be on the side of history that says, I was a meaningful part of changing things for the better, of bringing awareness to the issues of social injustice and to making sure that equality is not just something we talk about, but something that's actually put into action. And so for me, I think we have tremendous leadership. I think we have a tremendously strong group of players that wants to affect things positively. And that's the beauty of MLS. There's beauty in the diversity that we have in our league. Everyone's voice is equal. Everyone's voice is heard. And ultimately, that's what we want for our country as well.
We have a follow-up question from Matt Hens for you, Jalil.
My question's for Jalil. You mentioned earlier just not being able to get everybody on the same page with a decision whether to go ahead and not play. How do you guys go and make that decision? Do you take a team vote in the locker room? How did that kind of play out? And does that mean that either you guys were prepared to boycott and not play and maybe Orlando wasn't, or vice versa? How was that decision ultimately made?
Yeah, thanks for the question. But first and foremost, it's about unity. Yeah. Whatever was going to happen, we weren't going to put Orlando on an island, and Orlando wasn't going to put us on an island. So at the end of the day, everyone has to understand that us as players are united. It's not about, did we want to boycott Orlando, didn't, or did we not want to boycott Orlando? It's none of that. Our situation, like we were saying, is that we didn't have enough time to organize. But that does not mean that, there was a situation of, one team being left out on an island, or one team wanted to strike or boycott and one team didn't. I think that the league has shown, we've shown down in Orlando with protests that we're by and large on the same accord with all of this. And I don't think that tonight shows or speaks otherwise.
Matt, let me add to that. I want to give you guys a little bit of context of our setup here in Orlando. So obviously we all saw the news about the NBA and what happened in the NBA. There was no meaningful conversation up until the point where we had gotten to the stadium talking about whispers and rumors about what was potentially going to happen with us. And to your question, the decision to boycott a game has to be a decision made by every single player on both teams. So first of all, there wasn't a whole lot of communication going on with Orlando. We weren't really sure where they stood. They weren't really sure where we stood. Then you have the other issue of we're in an Orlando locker room, a visitor's locker room that's not big enough to house our entire 18-man roster. So we have 10 or 11 guys in one locker room, and then we have the subs and reserves in a completely different area, in a completely different locker room. So even if we had everyone in the same locker room, the timeline was so crunched, there might not have even been time to make a decision. But then you add in the fact that we didn't even have everyone in the same room. It's almost impossible to try to get everyone together when everyone's preparing for a game and thinking that a game is going to be played, to be able to have time to come together, hear every single person out, go to the other locker room, speak with Orlando City, see where they stand, while also being on your phone, talking to the leaders of other groups and other teams and the Black Players for Change leadership. This is a very truncated timeline where there was so much uncertainty and confusion, and then you have your phones not being able to use them at a certain point when you're starting to prepare for a game, that I think it was just a little bit too short of notice for us to be able to make any meaningful decision with regards to a boycott. So it's not as cut and dried as maybe some people think it is.
And I would just want to add to that. Again, this is about the player pool being unified. It just simply is. we've shown that. We'll continue to show that. And you know, even the NBA guys, you know, had to make sure that, you know, they were all on the same page. I know that they had to make decisions, but they also had time to have Zoom calls and those types of things to figure out what they wanted to do. So I know that, you know, people are trying to figure out, oh, is there a fraction within the groups, or is there a fraction within the player pool? I can tell you that there isn't, and we've shown that already. So, but we do appreciate your question.
Thank you. We will finish today's media with a question from Gentry Estes.